The morning sun crept through thin white curtains, scattering across the faded floral wallpaper of a house that hadn't heard laughter in years. The kettle whistled, though no one ever came running to pour the tea anymore. Evelyn Carter, 70 years old, sat at her oak kitchen table, her silver hair tied in a loose bun, a half-folded newspaper resting beside her trembling hands. The clock ticked, steady, soft, cruelly patient. She had lived alone for 12 years now. Her husband, Thomas, was gone. Her daughter, Lydia, hadn't spoken to her in almost a decade. And yet, every morning, Evelyn still placed 2 cups on the table. Habit, perhaps, or hope. Outside, autumn leaves gathered at her doorstep, orange, gold, and fading, just like the memories she couldn't let go of. That afternoon, Evelyn climbed the attic stairs to search for a box of blankets. The air smelled of dust and old wood, the kind of scent that makes time feel heavy. She coughed softly, brushing away cobwebs as she moved aside boxes labeled Christmas 1994, Lydia, school years, Thomas's office. Her hand paused over the last one. The handwriting, Thomas's handwriting, was firm, familiar, and somehow alive. She opened the box slowly, expecting old tools or documents. But beneath faded receipts lay a small, sealed envelope. The name on it was hers. Evelyn, for when the truth hurts less than the lie. Her heart skipped. The edges of the paper had browned. The seal was still intact. She hesitated, fingers trembling, then slid it open. Inside was a single sheet, folded twice, written in the same steady hand that used to hold hers every night. My Eve, if you are reading this, it means I couldn't tell you myself. There's something you deserve to know. Lydia isn't only ours. I mean, she is yours. Entirely. But I made a mistake long before we met. A woman from my past, Eleanor Wells, came to me years ago. She said she had a child and I gave her money to keep quiet. That child is Lydia's half-sister. Her name is Grace. I never told you. I wanted to, but every time I saw you hold Lydia, I couldn't. I am sorry. T. Evelyn's vision blurred. She dropped the letter to the floor and leaned against a beam, gasping for air. Thomas, the man she had trusted with every piece of herself, a betrayal hidden beneath the roof she still called home. She stared at her phone that evening for hours. Lydia's number was still saved, though she hadn't dialed it in 8 years. Not since the day Lydia had slammed the door and said, "You cared more about Dad's reputation than my pain." Back then, Evelyn had thought Lydia was simply rebelling. But now she wondered, had her daughter known something she hadn't? The phone rang twice before voicemail clicked in. Lydia Carter. Leave a message. Evelyn whispered, "Lydia, it's me. Your mother. I need to see you. Please." Her voice cracked. "It's about your father." She hung up and stared at the dark window reflection, a woman she barely recognized. 2 days later, headlights swept across her driveway. Evelyn rose from the sofa, her knees stiff, heart pounding. Through the glass door, she saw Lydia, 46 now, elegant, tired, her hair tied back in the same impatient bun Thomas used to tease her about. They stood face to face, 2 strangers wearing the same eyes. "Mom," Lydia said flatly. "Come in, sweetheart." Evelyn's voice trembled. The air between them was thin, filled with words unsaid for years. Lydia set down her bag, looked around the house that had once been home, and said quietly, "You called about Dad." Evelyn nodded, handed her the letter. "I found this in the attic." Lydia read in silence. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her eyes darkened. "So you didn't know?" Evelyn shook her head. "No." Lydia laughed, not from humor, but disbelief. "All these years, I thought you were protecting him. When I found that old photograph, him with that woman and a baby, I confronted you. You told me not to dig into his past. I was afraid," Evelyn whispered. "Afraid of losing what little I had left." Lydia turned away. "You already lost me." The words hit harder than the letter ever could. Later that night, unable to sleep, Evelyn walked into the living room. Lydia sat on the couch, the letter beside her. Evelyn handed her a photograph, The same one Lydia had mentioned. A black and white image of Thomas holding a baby in his arms. The woman beside him, Eleanor Wells, smiling faintly. I never saw it before, Evelyn said softly. Lydia's eyes filled. I found it in Dad's drawer a week after the funeral. I didn't know what hurt more, his betrayal or your silence. Evelyn took her hand. If I'd known then, I would have told you. But I was a coward, and you paid the price. For the first time in years, Lydia didn't pull away. She let her mother's hand rest on hers. Fragile, shaking, real. Days passed. The two women moved around each other carefully, like dancers afraid of stepping on old wounds. One morning, Lydia said, Grace, I want to find her. Evelyn nodded slowly. Then we will. They began with old records, letters, newspaper archives. After weeks of searching, they found her, Grace Wells, 50 years old, living 2 towns away. Evelyn wrote a letter. This time, not one to be hidden. Dear Grace, my name is Evelyn Carter. I was married to Thomas Carter, your father. I didn't know about you until recently, but I would like to meet you if you wish. She didn't expect a reply, but a week later, one arrived. Mrs. Carter, I don't know what to say. I grew up knowing my father's name, but never his voice. I'm willing to meet you and your daughter. Next Sunday? Grace. Evelyn pressed the paper to her heart and whispered, Thomas, look at what your silence cost us. But I'll fix it. I'll fix what you broke. The cafe smelled of cinnamon and rain. Grace sat near the window. Auburn hair, kind eyes. The resemblance to Thomas undeniable. When she looked up, Evelyn felt her knees weaken. Lydia stood beside her, expression unreadable. Grace. Evelyn whispered. Grace rose and smiled gently. You must be Evelyn. They sat. No one spoke for a long time. Grace broke the silence. I don't blame you. I just wanted to know why he never came back. Evelyn's voice trembled. Fear and shame. But he loved deeply, even if he failed terribly. Grace nodded, tears welling. I just wanted to hear his name from someone who loved him. Lydia reached across the table and took her half-sister's hand. Then hear it from me too. He was Thomas Carter, our father. And I think he'd be glad we're finally in the same room. That night, back home, Evelyn stood at the window. Thunder rolled across the lake. She whispered, Thomas, I forgive you. But more than that, I forgive myself. Lightning illuminated the attic window, the same one where she had found the letter. For a moment, she thought she heard his voice. Soft, warm, grateful. You did what I couldn't, Eve. She closed her eyes and for the first time in decades, slept without dreams. Months passed. The 3 women began to meet often, Sunday dinners, walks by the lake, quiet afternoons in Evelyn's garden. Neighbors would see them laughing softly, heads together under the sun. 3 generations bound not by blood alone, but by forgiveness. Evelyn started writing again. Pages filled with memories, letters to Thomas, and lessons for her daughters. She called the collection, The Weight of Her Silence. One evening, as she read aloud from her notebook, Lydia said, Mom, you should publish this. Evelyn smiled. I just want you to know it. That's enough. Grace added, You've turned pain into something beautiful. Evelyn laughed softly. Or maybe it was always beautiful. We just couldn't see it through the tears. On a cool spring morning, Evelyn sat by the lake where Thomas had once proposed. Birds chirped, water shimmered, and the wind carried the soft scent of jasmine. She closed her eyes and felt the bench vibrate slightly as someone sat beside her. She didn't open her eyes. She didn't need to. She knew that presence. Thomas, she whispered. In her mind, his voice was clear as day. I'm sorry I left you with the silence. Evelyn smiled. You didn't leave me alone. You left me with a story. The wind picked up, gentle, almost embracing. Leaves rustled around her like soft applause. A year later, Evelyn's book was published posthumously by her daughters. She had passed away peacefully in her sleep at 71, the manuscript resting on her nightstand, a bookmark at the final page. The dedication read, For Thomas, who taught me that truth hurts less than silence. For Lydia, who taught me that love can begin again. For Grace, who reminded me that forgiveness is a second birth. The book became a local sensation, passed around book clubs, read in church basements, and quoted by people who had lost someone but found themselves again. Months after the funeral, Lydia and Grace found a sealed envelope on Evelyn's desk. It read, "For my daughters. My dear girls, silence is heavy because it holds everything we never said. I carried it for too long, but you don't have to. Speak your truth, even if it shakes the world around you. If love is a house, then truth is its foundation. Build strong, my girls. And when you miss me, go to the lake. I'll be the wind that moves the water. Love always."
Mom.
Lydia held the letter to her heart. Grace placed her hand on her shoulder. Outside, the lake shimmered in the morning light. Years later, a small bench by the lake bore a plaque. In memory of Evelyn Carter, she turned silence into song. Sometimes, on quiet afternoons, visitors would swear they heard soft laughter carried by the breeze. And somewhere beyond the water, where light meets sky, Evelyn sat beside Thomas once more, not in regret, but in peace, watching her daughters live the truth she had finally set free. Give your suggestion and comment, please like and subscribe the channel.